Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in, being a part of this thing. I appreciate it. Potato Land is what we're calling it. Let me hide this. I was thinking, naming it a different podcast, we could call it Braden Young versus the World. I don't know, it seems pretty appropriate, just as appropriate. But fine, moving on. I noticed a lot of the last couple episodes, if you're watching, I noticed a lot of, if anyone's watching that is, a lot of chin displaying. I'm doing a lot of neck displays, which is already not one of my strong suits. I was taking photos with a female once. Actually, there were a couple females there, so she was approved to say this by the other person. But I was told to keep my just on the fly photos, whatever, mini modeling shoot in her minivan. And she told me to keep my chin down, which means what I've been thinking has been acknowledged all along. My whole life. My family, well, maybe I shouldn't get into it, but, your family teases you and whatnot, right? Love you guys, by the way. Not that anybody's watching, but, in fact, I don't know if I would want them to tune in, to be honest. I don't know if all this stuff is family approved, really, and, to some extent, yeah, it's like, probably shouldn't watch, I don't know. Unless, I don't know. Moving on. I wanted to talk about a bunch of things today, or at least a few, overspilled from last week. Maybe the podcast could go longer. And I don't think that's necessarily the case because, well, we talked about that stuff too. What is longer than, if you're willing to watch a 1 hour show on TV, we're going back to the old days, on TV, and that is 42, 44 minutes with commercials, not included, then how could you possibly watch one person talk for longer than that? And so far I've been butting up against the 40-minute mark at least once, and I don't think any longer than that is humanly possible if you're one person. I certainly don't have enough entertaining things to say. Speaking of that, moment of silence. And this is champagne, don't get thirsty. Unless you're addicted, that is. Stuff's disgusting. I don't usually buy it, actually. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's special. It's different from bubbles in your soda, right? So it tricks you. I got, I don't know if there's different flavors of champagne even. Don't call me sophisticated. I got BRUT, Brut champagne. I don't even know if there are other varieties. But anyway, so along the lines of the podcast theme there, because we're both doing this podcast together somewhat, at least in the beginning here. More like I'm just going to say more like what I was going to say, more like I need to get it out of the way. To talk about it is to get it out of the way. So along the lines of podcasting, and then we'll move on quickly, I wanted to talk about the best time to do a podcast, and at the same time give props again to one legendary podcaster who probably didn't talk about this stuff, by the way. No need to, but maybe he did. I didn't go through all 1,500 or so of his episodes. I think the best time to start yapping is probably when you haven't gotten enough sleep. Oh, that reminds me. Yeah, I really got enough sleep last night. And I was thinking, I was listening to Bill Burr's podcast this week. Probably for the first time. I think he's the most interesting. Love you, Bill. But even though I don't know you, but I was just thinking, am I folding my arm? I just haven't. I have to kick up a little bit of steam, and before I get into things. So, folding my arms, whether it's visible or not, is probably the best body language for me. Anyway, I was listening to a Bill Burr podcast, and he said he had gotten a lot of sleep, so he was yappy. And I tend to think that maybe that's the case if you haven't gotten a lot of sleep in the past few days, but if you stay up till 1 a.m. in the morning, 2, 3, maybe you're going till 4 right before the sun comes up, you really have a incentive to NGAF, not give a fuck. You have initiative, inertia to not give a fuck. I say that because you're getting all wily, you're getting all like, well, what are we doing? A different zone, nobody's awake, that sort of thing. And I wanted to give props to Joe Rogan for teaching me that, because through listening to his podcast, I learned that. He said something about back in the old days when he was writing or helping writing for one of his TV shows he was on. Brilliant stuff. I really think everybody should be writing early in the morning. You're almost most active too, because, or maybe it's because you're getting tired and you have to keep going. Yeah, which is more along the lines of what he said. Anyway, best time to do a podcast is probably then. I do my podcast every Thursday at, well, somewhere between, let's say, I don't even like talking about this stuff because I don't want to sort of fall into a sort of, regimen that I have to keep because of you guys, or maybe because of I said it out loud to myself to confirm it. But Thursday night, and I've never recorded later than maybe 10 o'clock or so. So if you're thinking about doing your own podcast, that's all I mean by that. Okay. Along the lines of what do we have to talk about today? Let me adjust the camera. Maybe I shouldn't. It's too late. We already got it started. I'll fix it in post. Speaking of post editing, I photoshopped out the two cowboys standing on the top of my heater back there. I photoshopped it out last week, and I already ran out of steam on that piece of humor, but I was going to make a joke and say that I photoshopped it out, but really I just put the damn thing back. Okay. Not funny. Carrying on from, I almost like one segment or the other for this week. It would be nice if I asked you how you were doing. Yeah, it would be really nice if I asked you how you're doing, because I'm not doing so awful. Even though I haven't been working, I've been getting into I'm just starting to think, I recorded a podcast 8 years ago, apparently. I tried to go for like 15 minutes, and I just had to keep starting over. And then I start not ranting, but ranting, if you call it a rant that's short. If you call a rant a short one, about how difficult it was to do. Where was I? I hate losing my place. How are you? Most importantly. And it's almost facetious. Looked up that word the other day, and I went back to it and looked it up today as well. If I ask you when I've already told you that I'm doing all right, don't you know me so well? Question mark. Maybe we do a moment of silence then. I'm going extra long because I feel like I want everybody to know, including myself who's looking back on this and editing, to know that it was genuine and sincere. All right, we did a moment of silence. That means if If I want to, I could just stop talking for a second, come up with something else, right? Because I don't really have that much planned today. All right. But as far as getting into what we were talking about last podcast a little bit, which was another fun one, if you ask me. I was talking about getting into your own world, and maybe I won't fix the camera. Maybe it is straight enough. Oops, I'm sorry I went off track there. It's a tiny bit crooked maybe, but I want to try and find out if you guys can see it in post. All right. Along the lines of what we were talking about last podcast, you can get a little, it's like what is good is bad. The glass is always, or the grass is always greener on the other side. I like the one I was about to come up with. But you get just as paranoid as you get comfortable, it seems, when you isolate yourself. Gosh, I wonder what it's like in the penitentiary. However you say that word. Oh. Because, they say it's the most miserable thing you could do to somebody. Oh. And I'm sure it is. There's nothing to look at. No different smells. All that stuff. And they don't give you anything to play with, right? So I'm not pretending to enjoy life too much, okay? But if you let me think about it for a second, and it was just on the tip of my tongue there. Forget it. I'm going to go down to my notes here. There you go. Along the lines of walking the tightrope that is life, that is life and death, really. That is, was honest about it last time. Might as well be honest about it again. But essentially, and this goes back to the basketball courts as well. If we could, because I never really talked about it, and I mentioned it so many times, never got around to it. Whether that was conscious or not. I have further proof that I live my life as if every day was my last, because I can't prove it to you. This is supposed to be an uplifting podcast, right? So I apologize, and by that I mean I'm sorry for saying I had a decent day. At the same time, I was asking how your day is, even though this is all virtual, and I understand that, but I can't show you photos. I suppose I could, but I'm not going to pull out statements from my bank account just to prove that I live every day as if it was my last. Champagne break. So there you go. There you have it. I feel like, here we go. Something I want to talk about I forgot to write down. I feel like, so I don't remember what I was going to say quite along that line of thinking, but this is what I forgot. And I forgot to write down, and now I'm remembering. I migrated all my YouTube videos to my old YouTube account, which gave me the username. I get a URL username. So that's big news. That's huge news. I swear I didn't have it written down. That's my list. And not sure if you guys can really even see that because I'm not looking anymore. And I was going to tell you about my walk in the park that's all I got for what I wrote down today. I was going to tell you about my walk in the park. We should probably get to that first. But I migrated all my videos over to my old account, so now I can promote myself as, go to youtube.com/Braden Young, which I think is awesome. It's somewhat along the lines of where I'm going with this promotion jibber jabber whenever I talk about it. So I think overall pretty cool, and I probably shouldn't talk about my walk in the park now. All I was getting at there is that I've done some of what I said I was going to do in previous episodes. You try and change your life. Yeah, I don't want to share with people that I'm changing my life because it's more fun, and well, it's not fun to write something down and get it done. I mean, it's fun to write something down so you remember it, but it's definitely not, it's less fun telling people you're going to do something. And if you think, I call it douchey. If you think, and we should definitely put down a list, I could work on it, where what is the most douchey thing you could do in order of importance, the douche list, right? But it's douchey to tell people that you're changing your life and that you're thinking about so on and so forth, unless you could promise them it's going to be entertaining. I'm not about to ask, see, when I say, how's your day? I mean, did you go for a walk? That sort of thing. I don't mean there's an NPR episode or something. I don't know where I heard this from, but it was a podcast, the 7 things you shouldn't talk about. I believe it's NPR. I went back and looked it up. So I believe it is NPR. The 7 things you shouldn't talk about. And one of them could be on there. Actually, I was thinking could be what I was talking about earlier, but about the what did you do today? But that's not quite it. It was how you arrived. You're traveling to get somewhere. To talk about that stuff is a lot of just the person in the back of their mind is, they're scrolling through their Instagram in the back of their head. They're checking social media. They're playing a guitar riff that they recently learned in the back of their head. No, their eyes are glazed when you talk to them about certain things. And I was thinking that's one of them. But the one I wanted to talk about was dieting is on there, trying to change your life. I mean, I look through this stuff. I'm a little bit of an advocate for self-help books, I guess you could say, especially if I'm not trying to complain here. Just if you want to live life I was sort of subject to living life by myself. We talked about it in the last episode. Because I have no control over what happens outside of me, but due to circumstances within the family, I'm here by, you could also even argue, I mean, my family can if they want to, and I'm not sure how much of a right they really have to argue anything. Yeah, I would suppose they have no right to argue this whatsoever, but gosh, I can't say that without remaining vague about what I'm talking about. So what I mean is my dad passing, and he passed when I was around 18 or something. So there you have it. I was going to live life by myself anyway. I was subject to it or whatever. It was in my future anyway. But what I meant by the chicken before the egg is essentially, did I put things in place to cause my father to catch illness and ultimately pass? I mean, just things we don't talk about in public, right? That's a good example. And if I were to do a 7, let's say, cumulatively speaking, I've probably recorded, I don't know, 3 hours. If I was to do a cumulative, a one shot at all of this, you would certainly be getting as many or more awkward moments of silence. Dead air, as they call it. But yeah, so I think self-help is a good thing. Read the books if you're interested. When I say the books, I just mean very vaguely. I can give you a couple I read, but the newest, hottest item on the douche list is telling somebody they should read a book or watch a show. Especially read a book, though. I mean, to pretend like it helped you so much and you want to help your friends that badly, you just wait. You put me in front of anybody who says read a book. All right, well, I don't know. We're coming up on 30 minutes or so here now, and I think it'd be a good time to sort of wrap things up. Let's see if I have anything else I wrote down. Oh, there you go. It's a perfect segue into what I was going to talk about here. It says, this is different from what we're talking about, but it says, no wonder you hear people talk about watching shows, but not podcasts or people they listen to. Great, great. I already dropped a couple names earlier this episode, and I did a episode that barely touched on my influences, because I wanted to get that out of the way early rather than later. But you'll hear about, this is more along the lines of, you'll hear about somebody saying that they watched a great show, or they're watching a great show, or listening to a great podcast. Is that where I'm getting at? I'm sort of lost now. I told you we should end it. They won't talk about podcasts that they listen to or people. When I watch my friends on the internet, my podcasts / my friends on the internet, they don't count as real life friends. But when I watch my favorite shows, for example, I don't know if I needed to say that for example part, but when I watch them, they don't want, yes, for example, they don't want to talk about, not even a quarter of a liter of champagne could do it. I only drank, I'm at half cup and I'm down to 20% now. Oh, really going off the rails on this one. But the podcasts I listen to, the people they don't talk about podcasts they listen to, I'm glad we tackled that a little bit. And they don't talk about people like influences and stuff, but they'll talk about the shows they watch. Yeah, and maybe that does have exactly to do with what I was talking about earlier. So I think we're good. Barely got out of that one. Scars and bruises all over my body. One last sip of the champagne and then I could say, well, that's the other thing is, I went to play basketball this week and I did want to kind of discuss that with you guys. Let's put down the synthetics. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about is you run into different people when you go out there into the world, and different classes, different age being the most important, right? I'm sure I've mentioned that before. But different skin colors, different amounts of limbs on their bodies, whatever you want to say, you know. And certainly different family situations, right? So different pasts and stuff. But people it tends to boil down to, I've done this a lot now, or enough now where, and I suppose you do this your whole life, but everywhere you go, you see the monkey in everybody, you know, it's that grin that's not that they're happy. Only monkeys do that, right? And this is why monkeys give me the willies, by the way, if we haven't already discussed that, but, covert, happiness, that's what I was gonna say, you know, covertly, hiding something. It all comes down to, in each one of these scenarios, it all comes down to, and I can only really comfortably play basketball in a predominantly higher class area, you know, and I suppose age isn't even an element here. High class, what I mean, middle class neighborhood. You sort of, you breach these, you know, these topics, and it's like, it's kind of difficult to discuss, and I can understand why anybody would want to avoid it, especially if you're talking publicly. But it's more to get to what I'm trying to get at is it's more comfortable to play basketball on courts that have predominantly white folk, white people on them. And there's no fun in saying this because it's getting better and better. But I'm holding it against anybody who plays the territory game, because I'm not having that as much fun as I could be having. We are not having as much fun as we could be having when I go to the courts, different courts and stuff. I suppose money is a factor too, because I could pay for, I suppose money, not just class, but how do you say, individual income is a factor, because I could go to just about anywhere and I could pick any sort of arrangement if I want. But if I, you know, put enough money in my gas tank or whatever, and also I think that's more important than scoping out which place I would like. But yeah, things people don't want to talk about. You know, if I think about not wanting to talk about something, I immediately have to discuss it. It's going to be one rule on this podcast. And you know, I'm thinking of something I didn't want to say last night that I forgot to write down. Oh, I have it, but it's in my phone. Okay, so one last topic before I let you go. If you would hang with me, I can only promise it's minorly entertaining. But here we go, a little bit of a lighting change, I'm sure there. Oh well. Yeah. We're getting late in this podcast. Gonna benefit myself here for a second before we get into it. But I did want to add, because I have it written down here reminding me, I did want to add, the reason I'm comfortable bundling up all my previous episodes instead of trying to sort of get into some YouTube algorithm game, I'm just going to throw them all in, upload them all up in one day or so, and throw them up on my better channel, older but also better channel, is because I felt like I passed my audition. I don't feel like explaining myself so much when it comes to living my life by myself, going out there, adventuring in the world all alone. I don't think that requires so much. Even though we'll probably continue to talk about it, I feel like I passed my own audition there. And looking over all of my previous episodes, podcasts, shows, vlogs, whatever, I think I did the right thing. I think they're all great, and they would all pass as entertainment for the masses if you are so entertained. Another thing is, like, does this guy have friends? You know, are you entertaining at all if you don't have somebody to vouch for you? That's a reality, and never talked about that. You know, that's a reality. So I still don't know that I quite 100% passed my own audition, because you guys can hold me, you know, I'm subject to your standards as well, if this is out in the public arena, I mean. But so there you have it. In my world, I passed my own audition, and I decided to throw them all up on my old channel. It doesn't matter when they were actually uploaded, in my eyes. We're going to get started on a weekly schedule. I would do this live. I would do this every couple or 3 days or twice a week or whatever, if necessary, to sort of fit in, have a community, I would do it all. So whatever it requires. I'm not going to mention for once the chair squeaking, but it's been, if you ask me, it's been the loudest it's ever been. We got to drop talking about chairs. I tried to handle it and I'm not going to do anymore. But I wanted to talk, but the last thing I wanted to talk about was, I mean, let's discuss this perhaps at another episode, because I can't believe we're in this deep already in terms of time. Let's see. I don't even remember. I read it. It says, whenever I think of something I can't say, I have to say it. And I didn't even fully write that part out, but it says, I drove by a punk rock show. And I did drive by a punk rock show. But I'm not going to try. Nope, not with this little alcohol in me. I'm not going to try to remember as I go. Why I took that last sip is a wonder to me. I also went to, did I write that? Yeah, okay. I also went to a, I didn't write what just came to my mind. I also went to a mom and pop shop stop, you could say, arguably. Hopefully the guy's just feeding himself and, I mean, hopefully he's, yeah, acquiring money to feed himself and his family, is what I mean. So that was nice too. But let's wrap it up. I apologize for any extra fluff in this one. I don't mean it. It's not intentional. I'm trying my best to entertain both of us. Okay. So have a good weekend, and I'll see you around the bend. Can't say that. I'll see you around the bend. All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, please. It means the world, and I'm getting used to saying that. Amongst other things. Okay, guys. Cheers.